All right, friends and family, welcome to LHS Live. We're here at the high school for our weekly show every Wednesday from 9:30 to 10 a.m. And I'm your host, Joe Roberts. I'm going to have a variety of guests on the show every single week. We're going to talk crazy. We're going to talk shop. We're going to do all kinds of things that are community related, school related, and I don't know, nonsense. Our very first guest is Assistant Superintendent for Liberty ISD, Dusty McGee, and he made a comment before we started. He said, "This is a show about nothing." Is that correct? This is Liberty Seinfeld.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of exciting to me. I feel like being the first guest here, I'm actually living and playing the part of being like a trivia question 10 years down the road about who was the very first guest. So I really feel like I'm going to go down in history after this.
No, the trivia question is going to be not only who was the first guest, but who was the first guest that got makeup?
Well, that would be the same, Joe. Yes, I was feeling a little oily today, so makeup rushed right in and took care of that. As I said before, my self-esteem's through the roof right now, really.
All right, LHS Live, we can't have any takebacks. We can't have any redos, restarts. Let's just jump right into it, Coach McGee.
Sure.
Is it okay if I call you Coach?
It's where I'm most comfortable,
All
even
right.
though I don't get to do that anymore. But yes.
I think I called the custodian coach the other day. That's what I call everyone.
Yeah, when you coach, everybody's
That's
coach,
right. That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so let's talk about it. We're in school again, and it's somewhat normal.
Yeah, it's almost like we never left. The last, typically, throughout our careers, there was a definite beginning and a definite end. And over the last 18 to 20 months, there hasn't been a definite beginning or end. It's been intermittent, and there's been times where everything's been wide open, and there's been times when it's been a bit more shut down. But so far this year, at least here in Liberty ISD, I think we're back to being as normal as possible while still trying to make sure that everybody's safe.
All right, so the million-dollar question is, what is the difference between last year's restart, where we were delayed, and this year's restart? I mean, from a temperature sort of standard, how are you feeling compared to last year and this year?
Yeah, last year I think there was a bit of an unknown going into, I would say probably 4 months really before the first day of school last year. Our team met every day, and by our team I mean Ms. Gardzina, Dr. Absher, Ms. Raymer at the administration building, and all the principals met every morning at 9 o'clock for about 4 months straight leading up to the first day of school. As we got through closer to the end of last year and some of the restrictions relaxed, this summer was a little different. We felt a little more open, and in some ways, it may be bad to say, but you almost felt less prepared this year. But I think that was a byproduct of knowing we know how to do this. We know how to do school. What we had to learn was how to do school under a lot of different restrictions. And so I think it was a bit liberating, but it felt a little loose at times because of how strict that construct had been over the last 12 months, let's say.
So what I'm hearing is you pulled out all the party supplies and you were woohooing and running around admin.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like my day really opened up, and so I was free to just kind of do anything the heart desired there. So yeah, there were a lot of parties, some hot dog vending stands, local food trucks that I visited. I was really just trying to fill my day, Joe, because there really wasn't anything left to do.
All right, Coach, on a serious note, because of the pandemic and all the things that were going on, there seemed to be somewhat of a teacher shortage throughout the state.
Sure.
There are many districts, some neighboring us right now, that were really struggling to fill vacancies,
Sure.
and not just elective courses, but I mean science and
Sure.
math. How did LISD deal with that?
It's a great question, and something that I don't know. If you don't work in the profession day in and day out, if you would really have really working knowledge of that. But even just as recently as, what's today, Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Yeah, so I guess recently as Monday afternoon, there was a report that came out through the media that kind of listed most of the school districts throughout the state and kind of where they started as far as filling teacher vacancies. And some of the larger districts, especially some relatively close to us, are starting with, I think I saw a number over 300 vacancies. Now, they have 50, 60,000 students and we have 2,000. But the fact still remains that 300 teachers short is 300 teachers short. As always, Liberty ISD continues to be a place that people want to work, and I think it's because they feel valued here. I think it's because of the relationships that we build here. And so even as recently as last night at the board meeting, we're happy to report that we are fully staffed here in LISD.
I think that deserves a woohoo. Woohoo!
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a woohoo.
So from a rock star standpoint, let's highlight some of those rock stars over there in the admin building. And I know for me, one of the people that I feel like I constantly talk to but don't talk to, maybe I talk to them in my head and try to manifest that, our CFO, Ginger Raymer. She has done some miracle work along with the board to do some really cool stuff for the people that were coming back, the people that were coming on board. Talk about some of that.
I don't know if we can really overstate the value that she has been to the district over the last 18 months and the professionalism she's shown. Every penny that's been spent really for the last year and a half has to be accounted for federally because you're in a federal kind of pandemic, and so every penny has to be accounted for, has to be put in spreadsheets and sent to different agencies across the state. And not only that, she has to find a way to allow the board to continue to give raises so that teachers feel appreciated, so that we maintain fully staffed. She has to find a way to fund initiatives that principals want to do. She has to find ways to fund initiatives that are great for kids. Like we're sitting in this room on a high school campus right now in a live TV production. And, this is not free. There had to be a way to fund this. And sometimes I think she is the unsung hero. I'm sitting here today getting to talk about it, but she's the one who really had to figure out how to pay for it and give information to the board. And I still continue to say that we work for the greatest board in Texas because they're all about supporting teachers and students. And all of that starts really with Dr. Absher and the fact that he is going to take care of everybody, and he's going to make sure to, at least to his best ability, that the people who work here and go to school here and the families who are served here have the best that we can possibly provide.
All right, Coach. The other day, my guy, Luka Doncic, for the Dallas Mavericks, he signed this $200-some-odd million Supermax deal. When Ginger said that we were going to get this bonus for the teachers,
Right.
I felt a little bit like Luka.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not $200 million, but
Yeah, I'm not sure your dribble drive is a strong, Coach, but you can still rein it from the outside a little bit. So
a little bit.
I see the comparison there. Obviously, I think everybody wishes that the educational professionals, maybe those roles were switched and they were compensated at the rate professional athletes were. But with that being said, we know that's not the case, and the people who work here are in it for the right reasons. But with that being said, the board, Ms. Raymer, Dr. Absher, all of the people that made that happen, the people who live in our community who do not bat an eye about supporting our school district and do it willingly, all of those people need to be congratulated, because when people feel appreciated, when they feel valued, and when they feel compensated fairly, there's not really a reason to look anywhere else. And I think the proof's in the pudding. We're fully staffed, and that's not by chance. That's through a lot of hard work.
No doubt about that. Let's continue on this same vein here
Sure.
with the school board. Liberty's doing something really cool this year, trying it out. Have never done it before. A 4-day work week.
Yeah.
And I know there were some people in the community that may have scratched their head about that a little bit.
Yeah.
There may have been some concern.
Sure.
Talk about that.
Yeah, well, when you talk about unsung heroes, Miss Margaret Gardzina is an unsung hero in this area because she is really the person who heads up the infamous calendar committee. You know, some people really want to be on that committee, and some people really run from that committee because that is one committee that is never boring. But with that being said, you know, anytime there's an idea out there, right? When you're talking about another reason we're fully staffed, there is no doubt that some people came to us and some people stayed with us because of our calendar. There's no doubt about it. You know, frankly, when you have some school districts around us who, in some ways, have some more funding mechanisms than we do, sometimes you have to get creative in how to provide benefits to your teachers, but also what is the research on what it says about kids, right? Adults work 40-hour weeks. Some of us, you know, that's at a minimum. Some of us, like you, Joe, probably double that weekly. But the fact is that I think a lot of times what's overlooked is that our kids are doing the same thing, right?
Right.
And so as adults, we have the ability to push pause or to reschedule our workday or we're able to invoke any number of things to keep us on track. And what the research says is that there may be some benefit for retention, for less burnout, for more engagement by kids in this 4-day week. But what the part that I think that gets overlooked a lot, and again, if you don't work in education, you don't know this, there is a minimum number of minutes required by the state that every student has to be in class. So what is a 4-day week, I don't want to be confused, or we don't want to be confused with it somehow meaning that means less opportunity for education. Because when you add it up at the end, yes, the X and the Y variables may be different, but after the equal sign, the cumulative educational minutes for kids remains the same because that's a state law. And so while some people look at it as this radical departure from what we've done in the past, it's really not. It's really just a reallocation of when we are in school, but by and large, the number that comes after the equal mark, the sum of opportunity, is very close to being the same.
Great. So what was the real tipping point? Because I was thinking that there was going to be some pushback from perhaps the lower grade levels.
Sure.
That, you know, when you think about education, you think the ABCs and those basic things that you want those kids to be getting constantly, and that it didn't seem to be the pushback level from that source.
No, and I'll be honest with you, I was intrigued, I guess would be the word, as to where this whole thing would go. But it really wasn't even close. There was an internal survey, basically, where 80% of the people who work for us supported us trying a 4-day calendar. The same percentage, almost to the decimal point, came in from outside in our communities, where 80% of the families we serve also wanted to try it. And there was a big push at the lower levels, I think, because they are advocates for kids, and you know, sometimes we forget that kids still need time to be kids, and I think they saw the value in maybe being able to recharge their little batteries at times, and maybe being more productive, because I think in anything you get to a point of diminishing returns, and so I think that's how a lot of people see it, and we'll see where it goes.
So one of the main things that I was thinking about was, how did they think that this was going to impact truantism, or I don't know what the word is. Truancy. There you go.
There you go.
Truancy and behavior management was there the idea that this would be more beneficial for that as well?
Sure. I think anytime, I don't think as a rule we should go into anything with our eyes closed, right? Like, we should look at things realistically. And obviously, anytime somebody has more time, more free time, there have to be some choices made about how that time is used. And so part of school is teaching young adults how to use that time wisely, effectively, and lawfully, to be honest. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there were some concerns about, hey, how will Fridays look if kids aren't in school? How will X, Y, Z? I mean, those are fairly predictable questions, I think. And the answer is that what we hope is that Fridays aren't just a blank slate of nothingness for our kids. I know Dr. Absher in each of the schools has talked about some possibility for different options that we would have never had the opportunity to have in the past, opening up for students on Fridays as we get into this year. And hopefully what students will find that part of education too is somebody giving you an opportunity to find out who you want to be, what your interests are. And so hopefully as we get into this and build on this calendar, you know, as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
Right.
But also something not being perfect should not prevent you from taking the first step. And so as we get further into this, what everybody hopes is that there are some opportunities for students out there that they can explore. Like, you know, maybe we have some young chefs who would like to explore a cooking class, and maybe we have some professionals who would like to open up a cooking class on Friday that hasn't been there before. That's just one example, but you can, you know, as varied and wide as our professionals' interests are who work for us, you know, we want to open up an opportunity for those interests to be shared with students. So I think as we get further into it, hopefully some of those questions and concerns will be quelled a little bit. I know even here at the high school that Coach Slack, I call her Coach Slack still, as you said, everybody's coach after you coach, but I know she's got some interesting ideas too on how to support kids on Fridays. So yeah, you know, when you look at our PLC process, there are 4 questions, and PLC is how we function in this district, professional learning communities, and that's how we plan for kids and do what's best for them. But there are 4 essential questions, right? Like, what do we want kids to learn? Number 2 is how will we know that they learned it? Question 3 is, what are we going to do if they don't learn it? And question 4 is, what are we going to do if they do know it? So Fridays opens up a whole new world for addressing question 3 and 4 as we move into it.
So now, not just the students, but the faculty and staff, the hope is that, you know, doctor's appointments and other things that, you know, life happens for adults too. The hope is that's going to happen on those days, and so the less likelihood that we're going to have substitutes on campus, and so the certified teachers will be in the classroom more often. Is that correct or no?
Yeah, and I mean, you started early about this this idea of a teacher shortage. That's not just Houston. That's not just Texas. That's not just Beaumont. That's a nationwide trend that's been continuing. But this idea that you talk about, and when you have less teachers, what happens are subs are used more, and so a sub pool for when teachers out shrink, right? And so to your point, you have to find ways to address that. So if teachers know, listen, instead of me being out on Tuesday to do something that really needs to be done, like my kid needs braces, right? I can't neglect that, but I can now choose to schedule that on one of the Fridays on our calendar that's open. And not only is my own kid not missing class, but I'm also serving kids in my own classroom. And so hopefully it's a win-win for everybody. And you know, there is this idea that somehow less is always less. But sometimes when you have less of anything, right, whether it's less money, less time, less opportunity, you realize that inherently, and you make more of that smaller amount. And so there is a train of thought that with with less days, even though, as I said, it's the same amount of minutes, with less days, that it might actually serve to focus us a little bit, and really pinpoint what we're trying to execute.
Perfect. So the last thing is, it's not every Friday.
No. Yeah, that's another thing, that if you don't really look at the calendar a whole lot, it's really a hybrid calendar. And when I really talked about, it's really just a reallocation of days that we've always had. We're here every Friday in August. We're here Fridays in May. We're here Fridays during testing season. And so there are weeks, obviously, where there are 4-day weeks, but it's really a hybrid and a reallocation of days. And listen, rarely do you get something perfected the first time you try it, right? But again, that shouldn't prevent you from being brave enough and bold enough to accept an opportunity and to take the chance to do that. And that's a lesson for us all, okay? And so as that infamous calendar committee will roll up again, probably in January, and they'll get feedback about what worked, what didn't work. We'll get all that feedback from everybody, and then they'll adjust the calendar, and we'll do it all over again. This cycle of continuous improvement, that's just what it is. You do the best you can. You gather data about the decisions you made. You break the data down. You use that data to inform new decisions. You build a new plan, and you start over. And that cycle just continues, and that's what we're doing. And so we're at the start of this cycle, and we'll collect data all year, and then we'll let it inform our decisions for next year.
All right, Coach, the real question here, we've got just a precious few minutes left. The real question in my mind is, when do I get to transition from calling you Coach to Dr. McGee?
Yeah.
And don't be coy.
Yeah. I don't think that'll be anytime soon. And let me tell you why.
Oh, okay,
right?
okay. Here it is. Here it comes.
Yeah. There are certainly, right, some benefits to being called doctor of anything, right? There's a lot of reasons to get that achievement. Dr. Absher has that.
Especially when you say it the way you just said it, doctor.
Yeah. I mean, it does roll off the tongue differently. But with that being said, part of that too is to open up opportunity. Anytime you progress your education is to open up opportunity, and this is probably revealing a little too much or being a little honest.
Don't worry, we're amongst friends.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Joe. I really like serving here,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a commitment that takes a lot of time. And right now, I'd rather focus time and energy on helping us get where we need to be. I have the certifications that go, superintendent certificates, all of those things. But for right now, I think we're focused on being the best we can be here. And, as long as I continue to get makeup prior to shows like this, I don't know what other real perk I'd be looking for.
All right, so perhaps then you're the Macgyver of Liberty. Is that a
Wow.
better?
My self-esteem really is through the roof now.
Well, I mean, you got the makeup, you've got the new moniker. Maybe you're good to go.
Yeah, I'm sure I can do a very poor job of living up to that. That'll be great.
Well, if we ever have any problems and you can solve it with a piece of chewing gum wrapper and a safety pin or something, coat
whatever,
hanger.
Yeah, we'll get it done. That's our motto here in Liberty ISD. Sometimes it may not be as big as everybody else, or it may not be as pretty as everybody else, but I guarantee if you're a part of us, you'll have opportunity, you'll be appreciated, you'll be loved, and we'll all be in it together. And there's a comfort and a real family atmosphere that comes from that. And so I don't know what really anybody else would be looking for. It's just great to be a Panther.
All right, Coach, last thought before we end our very first LHS Live.
Yeah.
What do you want the people that are watching now or that will watch later, because you'll always have the ability to watch this later, what do you want them to take away from the LISD experience?
Sure. Well, I think I think what we're doing right now, right? Let's just live in the moment. This show that we're doing live right now is an example of the forethought, the initiative, the real want, the genuine desire to bring opportunity to kids. That some people would say, listen, you know, y'all are a small school district located between Beaumont and Houston. If you want, you know, a live TV studio opportunity for your students, you're going to have to go somewhere, you know, bigger that has more opportunity. But what we see here is that we figure out what we have, right? And just like we talked about earlier, it may be less in some circumstances than the HISDs or the Sci-Fairs of the world, but it really makes us focus on opportunities that our kids are interested in, opportunities for their future, and then instead of making excuses, the people in this community and the people who work for Liberty ISD get it done. And there is nothing that comes before opportunities for our kids. And I really think that the people who work in this community, who live in this community, make sure that our kids are always first, and that's what I always think is the best part about Liberty ISD.
And that's why we love you, Mr. McGee. All right, our very first LHS Live. You can always watch us every Wednesday from 9:30 to 10 a.m. If you miss it at that time period, you can check out the website and you can watch it in antiquity. I don't know if that's the right word or not. I like the word antiquity. Special thanks to our very first guest, Assistant Superintendent for Liberty ISD, Mr. Dusty McGee. Wow, that's some alliteration there. That rolled right off the tongue.
Yeah, that did flow well.
I'm Joe Roberts, and you have been watching LHS Live. We'll see you next week.